for filters? Check your coffee maker. This is Filter Free Radio with Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott. FilterFreeRadio.com. Get ready to suck down some grounds.
When I talk about resistance, I think we have to stand up now and carry out acts of nonviolent resistance.
Because the truth is, we do have power.
We live in revolutionary times, but the counter-revolution is winning.
Sounds like a case of the Mondays.
Live Monday, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern. FilterFreeRadio.com.
This is my favorite show.
We have been given an opportunity to make a new beginning.
And I think it's very important for us to start to build a culture of resistance because what we're doing isn't working, clearly.
It's our job to very coldly assess reality and then figure out how to respond.
Your number one source for unfiltered truth, analysis, and solutions. FilterFreeRadio.com.
We've been gone for about 2 weeks. I can't give you a recap of all the that happened over the past day. Every major story of interest, but I can tell you this. We're back, baby!
We are back, baby. It is so good to be back live, broadcasting on FilterFreeRadio.com. It is November 25th, 2013. It's Thanksgiving week, and we are pumped. It's so good to be with you. Jacob Dean here, live for the first time in like 3 months. Where the hell have you been? We are broadcasting live again. Our website, FilterFreeRadio.com. Also on the home of Nicole Sandler, RadioOrNot.com. I believe we're broadcasting on ProgressiveBlendRadio.com. It's been a while, but and we're also working on the technical difficulties on getting us up onto Liberal Justice Radio. Unfortunately, we appear to be having a little bit of technical difficulty getting up onto Liberal Justice Radio. So we've got to call into the boss, the man, Mr. Kenny Pick, to find out what the frick is the password. And
yeah.
Now I believe we're having a little bit of technical difficulties on Ustream. Man, it's been a while. I literally had to like dust off the microphone and dust off the audio board here, the keyboard, dust off. I mean, it's been a while. So
it's been a while.
It's been a while, right? We've got a lot of stuff to get to on this program. I know it's the 100th episode, and before we took a break, our really super extended long break, we were going to try to do a special 100th episode, a recap of our favorite moments over the last 100 episodes, which are all archived for you on YouTube and over at our website, FilterFreeRadio.com. We decided, let's move forward. There's so much to get to. It's been a while since we've done a show, and we can reminisce another time. If I were to boil the last 100 episodes down to one soundbite, it would be Scott threw my phone out of a third-story window. I still use that phone today. We listened to a lot of great Chris Hedges, Amy Goodman, and Jon Stewart when we needed a laugh. So it's good stuff. And and there you have it. Moving forward, things that I wanted to get to on the program today, I want to get into a climate conversation. Last week was the UN climate talks in Warsaw, which is absolutely a joke. It's a show. It's a bread and circus. I want to break that down. We got to talk about the 90 companies that are making up over 2/3 of the total carbon in the world, and literally they've named the names. There was a brilliant conversation with Bill Moyers. Moyers and Company on public television, the only thing worth watching on free television anymore, other than maybe, The Simpsons and Family Guy. Bill Moyers had on Dr. Jill Stein and Dr. Margaret Flowers, a positive path of resistance. We got to talk about that in the climate conversation. And then I got to tell you, share a really cool story that was sent to us via email, which you can always contact. We want to participate with you. We want this to be an interactive program as much as possible. All of the contact information is scrolling across the top of your screen, and you can use that whether you're watching us live right now, whether you're watching the podcast on YouTube or listening to us on iTunes for free. You can always call us at 503-746-TALK, 503-746-TALK. You can email me, Jacob at filterfreeradio.com. You can Skype into the show. It's Jacob_Dean. I've got the Twitter feed open for the first time in front of me, trying to watch the Twitters as well. You can follow us and tweet to us at filterfreeradio.com. I want to give a shout out to a couple of new folks who found us recently and have sent me tweets saying, hey, I just found your guys' show. Way cool. Be sure to check out our Facebook page if you haven't already liked us on Facebook. It's facebook.com/filterfreeradio. All the news you can use right there. And I tell you, if you email us, you call us, you leave us a voicemail, you message us, it goes directly to me. And sometimes I share it with Scott. But there's no one else. It's just us. There's nothing else. This is a complete independent operation of radical truth-telling. The only show that refuses to retreat from reality. There you have it. All right. It's good to be back, man. And we're going to talk about climate. We got to talk about this new Chris Hedges speech. Scott, you found this for me, and this was over on YouTube, right? This was at how do you say the college? Moravian College?
Moravian College?
Moravian College, yes.
Moravian, I don't know. It's a small school I've never even heard of.
Okay. Well, Mr. Hedges was recently at aforementioned college, which was probably butchered, and gave a great speech titled The Myth of Human Progress and the Collapse of Complex Societies. This is some really dense stuff. Like, I could do a whole show on any one of these 60-second clips. Seriously. It's so dense.
Yeah, it's heavy.
But it's so good. And if you have come to expect nothing else from this program, it is the fact that we want to dive into the reality, take a real hard look at what is happening so we can determine how we move forward and do it appropriately. And also, new article, Chris Hedges writes a weekly article. If you don't follow him already, get over to truthdig.com. Every Monday, there's a new article. Today's titled Shielding a Flickering Flame. Is really good stuff. We'll play some Leak Camp. We've got the latest Leak Camp's moment of clarity. Dystopia will not attack us. It will slowly consume us. We'll play that in the second hour. We've got the latest from the Green News Report. And also, we've got a little bit of Jim Hightower on should we be drug testing elected officials. We'll play all of that coming up. I just wanted to say, hey, man, haven't talked to you forever, dude. How you doing? I missed you. And, what's going on?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, you. Who else am I talking to? The NSA?
I thought you're talking to our listeners.
Hey, NSA.
Like, hey, guys, I missed you.
Vic,
yeah.
Vic is in the chat room, and hey, what happened? And whatnot. It's been 3 months since we've done a show. We can talk. I'll talk a little bit more about that. Maybe we'll do some sausage and hang around for a minute. I can explain where the hell we've been. Long story short, prioritize and life had to come first for a little while. So the good news is all is well. We're back to it. We're rocking and rolling, kicking ass, taking names, and moving forward. So, and we just happened to return. I called it the rather random return because this is kind of an arbitrary date that just happened to work for both Scott and I. But we happened to return just in time for Thanksgiving and Black Friday. Dun, dun, dun. Where's my I got to get the soundboard up here and working. It's been a little while. Oh, and now my nut dun dun doesn't work. Well, that's just terrific. Well, it's been a while.
That's what you get for free software,
you can see. Some things are still working the dust off, shall we say, right? But I wanted to talk about really this article that I read in the Oregonian that just kind of set me off, and I didn't know about this before, and I think this is unprecedented, but several of these big retail, capitalist chains are opening not on Black Friday at 3 a.m. in the morning after Thanksgiving. All of these chains now are going to open on Thanksgiving. Kmart is going to open at 6 a.m. on Thanksgiving for Black Friday. Best Buy is going to open at 6 p.m. on Thanksgiving for Black Friday. right? J.C. Penney's 8 p.m. on Thanksgiving, Kohl's 8 p.m. on Thanksgiving, Macy's 8 p.m. on Thanksgiving, Sears 8 p.m. on Thanksgiving, Toys R Us is going to be opening at 5 p.m. on Thanksgiving, and of course, fucking Walmart is always open, right? So I know I'm not the only one that this irked up. I can't be the only one out there who thinks that this is a bigger deal than most people are going to give it. And I think the real tragedy here is the fact that most people are going to ignore it. Most people aren't even going to notice. Most people aren't even going to care. Hell, that just means I get to buy another piece of shit made in China earlier.
Consumption. People buy things they don't have. Things they can't afford with money they don't have.
Fuck baseball.
Yeah. It's just sad. It really is sad. It's a sad connotation in our society. I mean, consumerism, it is consuming us.
Here's the clip, the one, the only.
These people are efficient, professional, compulsive consumers. It's their civic duty. Consumption. It's the new national pastime. Fuck baseball. It's consumption. The only true, lasting American value that's left, buying things. People spending money they don't have on things they don't need. Money they don't have on things they don't need. So they can max out their credit cards and spend the rest of their lives paying 18% interest on something that costs $12.50. And they didn't like it when they got it home anyway.
That's right, folks. Step right up. Fuck family values. Fuck loved ones. Fuck valued relationships. And especially fuck Thanksgiving. Come buy shit instead, right? Hey, at least you can have your Thanksgiving with your loved ones in the food court, right? Are you going to be eating orange chicken for Thanksgiving? I'm curious.
No, bourbon chicken.
I would love to know. I would love to know. That's kind of a joke. I get it. But what about the bigger picture, the bigger idea? How do you feel about being bombarded with consumption, being referred to as a consumer and not necessarily a human being? Scott, what are your thoughts?
Well, it's just the coup de grace of corporate takeover. I mean, we exist in a corporate state. We are nothing but consumers and commodities. You know, if we're not shopping and buying things, we're being exploited for our health and well-being by the insurance and pharmaceutical companies, you know, and we're beholden to the petrochemical industry. I mean, you name it. It's just we have owners, as George Carlin says, they own us. And so they've decided that they're not making enough money on Black Friday because, for whatever their mistaken identity reason is, they decide that they need to expand Black Friday, which, just think about the terminology, though, that they use. I had the displeasure of sitting in front of a television this evening and watching the so-called local news, and all they talked about was robberies, murders, and travel plans, and people's compulsion to shop. I mean, and of course the local sports franchise. But you know, it's not news, and so when you're talking about how to plan your shopping experience as if it was news, I mean, it's just, and they use terms like Black Friday and how to survive, survive, you know, all these other terminologies that are just normally equated with death. And yet they use them to describe the holiday season. You know, it's just such a contradiction, and it's just remarkable. It's just, you know, it's a sad connotation in our society, and it just represents a corporate takeover of American culture.
It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, and maybe I'm the only one screaming about this. I hope not. I hope more people would take notice of this, because as far as I know, like I said, it's unprecedented that some of these retailer chains are going to be doing this. Here's the question I'm posing. I'd love to take your thoughts on it at 503-746-TALK. Are you thankful for unfettered capitalism this Thanksgiving? A lot of these retailer chains are hoping you are, and I think really the idea of these retailer chains opening on Thanksgiving so we can buy more cheap shit not made in America and not support United States manufacturing base or the American middle class, and not spend time with our loved ones and building relationships that we no longer value anymore. This is another nudge in the wrong direction. It is more horse shit from our dollarocracy, and because we no longer have a democracy, it is a dollarocracy, and you got to take a stand somewhere. You got to draw the line somewhere. You got to take notice on the unrelenting path that is presented. So, for God's sake, please do not go shopping on Thanksgiving. That is my message. If you take nothing else away from the rant,
if you have to go to the mall or to Walmart or any of that bullshit, at least do it in protest. And I don't mean like begrudgingly bringing your son, daughter, or relative there. I mean like one of the organized mass protests that are going on to protest this kind of, hypocrisy, if you will. And there are many protests for Black Friday. Remember last year?
I'm super happy you mentioned that, Scott, because I posted our video when we went to the local Walmart here and attended the Black Friday protest last year. We filmed it and did a whole show about it. I posted that video back up at the top of our YouTube channel. If you go to youtube.com/FFRWJD, it stands for Filter Free Radio with Jacob D. And at the time,
what would Jacob do?
But it's on YouTube, and I put it up at the top of our YouTube channel. If you can find it, there it is. We need to put a link on our website. But I'm super happy you mentioned that, Scott, because that gives us a chance to mention there are nationwide protests going on this Black Friday coming up on the 29th of November, 2013. This Black Friday, there's going to be, again, rallies, protests nationwide. And I went to the website you need to know is Black Friday Protests, plural, protests.org is the website. If you go to blackfridayprotests.org, you can type in your zip code and find the closest local protest that's going to be happening near you. I can tell you, for me, since I checked it, as you may or may not know, I'm in Portland, Oregon, and the local protest is going to be this Friday at the Walmart on 82nd Avenue in Southeast Portland, just north of Holgate. It's basically 82nd Avenue and Holgate in Southeast Portland this Friday at 11 a.m. Oh, and guess who's going to be there with their cameras saying, fuck yeah, 2 years in a row, bring the mother down, I'll be there just to hang out and take a poll of the attendance and kind of see what's happening. If you're in the area, hey, come on down, stop on by. Or better yet, what I would love for you to do is to go wherever you may be, go to your local protest if you're able, and you be the media. Take your iPhone or whatever have you, and film a video or at least go and document what you've seen. Take a piece of paper and a pencil is all you really need. And do a little report and send it to us, email it to us, or call it in on our comment line. We would love to share those examples of folks getting active and saying, hey, this holiday season, yes, I want to give something to my loved ones and show them I love them. And not all of us can knit beautiful scarves. I get that. So, shop locally. Don't go give your money to the 6 Walmart billionaires who have a combined wealth that's greater than, 1/3 of the whole country? I mean, don't go give your money to the Walmart billionaires or the Kmart billionaires. You get the idea.
Or any billionaire for that matter. I mean, you have to realize that the goal at this point in our society, if we are to sustain ourselves and if we are to actually turn back from the abyss, is to revolt. And part of that revolt, these systems is cutting ourselves off from these systems. You have to revolt from these systems, and part of doing that is to stop giving them our money. These billionaires are as wealthy as they are, not just the hedge fund managers, but the actual titans of these large multinational corporations, that because we give them our money. We go to the grocery stores and we give our money. I mean, one of my local grocery store, I'm not going to name the name, it's owned by a German company, so every time I buy my own personal groceries in my own neighborhood, the money goes back to Germany. Same is true for Walmart. All your money goes to the effing Walton heirs. And those 6 sons of bitches, or it's either 4 or 6, I can't remember, but they're like, they're the top 10 richest people in the country, in the world, and they're assholes. And the list goes on. I mean, so and the same with sports franchises, or you name it. I mean, ask yourself who owns the companies and the businesses that I give my money to, and do I want to continue to give these people my money, and find alternatives. And it's a really hard thing to do, and it starts inch by inch and instance for instance, in terms of where you spend your money out to eat, where you spend your money to buy your groceries, where you spend your money to buy your clothes, etc. I mean, when you stop shopping at Gap and realize that the money you buy at the Gap goes to these Bangladeshi sweatshop factories that are killing people, if you realize and acknowledge that, it's going to be hard for you to spend your money there. But if you remain willfully ignorant of these things, then it doesn't bother you. And the same is true for wherever you spend your money at. So I think the really important thing is to become conscious of this, as well as finding alternatives. And that means mom-and-pop restaurants, non-chain, non-national chain restaurants, non-chain, non-national chain, at the very least gas stations. I mean, if I have to buy gas and it's not a hole-in-the-wall, unnamed gas station, it's going to be Citgo. Come and give my money to Venezuela, rather than give my money to Shell, Royal Dutch Shell, or British Petroleum, or ExxonMobil. I mean,
all of those, by the way, are on the list of the 90 companies that make up 2/3 of the total carbon that we're going to talk about in a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Just as an example. So, I mean, there's just a litany of places you can avoid, but you have to first find alternatives.
Hallelujah. And we have to create essentially the logistics for those alternatives to exist. I think that's becoming a recurring theme of Chris Hedges recently, and I love it. I'm on board.
The point now is, the issue now, as we understand, in terms of revolt, in terms of stopping this madness, this downward spiral that we all know is happening, is to acknowledge it and to turn away from it. And to do that, it's not if you talk to your average individual, and tell them, everyone knows that jobs aren't being created, that the economy is getting worse, and so on, but they don't understand why. But so, I mean, really, the issue is not ideological. The issue is logistical. Mm-hmm. We have to create parallel systems to provide alternatives to people from these corporate leviathans. I mean, we have to, you have to get your money away from them, and the only way to do that is to have alternatives and to create alternatives. And there's multiple ways to do that. So.
Just to put a punctuation point on the last conversation, if you are happening to catch this on the rebroadcast on YouTube or on the podcast on iTunes or at a later date, if you happen to work on Thanksgiving because the retailer chain that you worked for decided to open on Thanksgiving and you weren't having any of that, I'd still love to know how you feel about that. So you can give us a call. Love to see, it's great to see some of the folks chatting in the Ustream chat room and a couple of folks over at radioornot.com in the chat room. Howdy, y'all. Long time no chat. It's great to see you. If anyone, if Adam or Kenny is listening, or if you're just joining us, we would be on Liberal Justice Radio, but the password to broadcast has changed in the last 3 months from what I have logged
since in last time we were
on my broadcasting software. So the only way you can hear me, obviously, you can't hear me on Liberal Justice Radio, or else you'd know this and there wouldn't be a problem, is on the Ustream right now or at our website, filterfreeradio.com. So, hey, it's great to have you with us. Before we run to a quick break here at the bottom of the hour, we got time to mention, just real briefly, of course, I've been gone for 3 months. I've watched a little bit of the news here and there, not really much. I've actually spent more time in the woods with the bears and the fish and the and decompressing and the unplugging from the matrix, so to speak, a little bit. It's been great. Been able to recharge, refresh, reorganize, reprioritize, all sorts of good stuff. One of the things that I've caught wind of over the last week or so is this, first of all, the Toronto crack-smoking mayor who is all over the news and the parodies and very Chris Farley-esque. And more recently, this congressman from, I think it is Florida, named, Trey Raydell, I think is his name. And here's one of these Florida Republican congressmen who think that if you're poor and you're on government assistance and you need food stamps, that you should have to be screened by a drug test before you receive those benefits. And meanwhile, gets busted buying cocaine, right? Oh, irony. Our good friend Kenny Pick put this little jingle together. I'll share this with you real quick here. This is funny. The man, Kenny Pick, of Turn Up the Night with Kenny Pick. Check out kennypick.com for more.
I'm sorry. I have no excuse for what I've done. And I'm not going to sit here and try and make any excuses for what I've done.
Trey Radel, he snorted the cocaine. Trey Radel, so much for his next campaign.
I've let down our country. I've let down our constituents. I've let down my family.
Trey Radel, he snorted the cocaine. Trey Radel, so much for his next campaign.
I'm here tonight to take responsibility for what I did, to be held accountable for the bad decisions that I made in my life.
Trey Radel, he snorted the cocaine. Trey Radel, so much for his next campaign.
Cocaine is a hell of a drug.
Oh, Trey Radel, you scamp.
Thank you, Kitty Pick. I think thanks to Trey Radel and this Rob Ford guy up in Canada, maybe we've actually figured out what the hell is wrong with elected officials. Maybe the people in Congress. Of course, we know that there's money and that the whole electoral political system is broken at the core. But I think that this is actually another piece of the puzzle. This is what's wrong with all these people. And I think all of our elected officials should be drug tested. Personally, I've never been a fan of drug testing people. I think generally it's used as a tactic against the poor. But in this case, of all of our elected officials, I'm very much for drug testing. Being an elected official, theoretically, in theory, is a very serious job with very serious responsibilities. These people are supposed to be representing you and me, theoretically, supposed to be doing the will of we the people, supposed to be running all these levels of different government, local, state, federal, essentially running the country theoretically. We know that Congress has gone to shit. The country is in a crisis. Most of us agree something strange is going on with our elected officials these days, and I think it is time to drug test them. Scott, what do you think, man?
I think that's eliminating the largest abused drug that they have, and that is alcohol. I mean, I think in lieu of a drug test, I mean, it's complicated, but I would say every morning when they get to work, they should do a breathalyzer.
There you go.
That way you can be like, oh, look, these guys are alcoholics and can't do their job.
No, I'm not saying drug test the pizza boy or drug test, the garbage man. I'm saying drug test those who are in decision.
Yeah, and I'm saying that they're all alcoholics. So let's acknowledge the fact that they're abusing alcohol as well.
There you go. More radical truth-telling. The only show that refuses to retreat from reality. Filter-Free Radio. It is so good to be back with you live. Mr. Skeptical Scott here. Jacob Dean here with you live at filterfreeradio.com. Don't go anywhere. We got lots more coming. And right now, here's Mr. Jim Hightower. Jim Hightower's take on should we be drug testing the elected officials? He says yes, too.
We need a movement of truth tellers.
The kind of progressive grassroots movement.
A social movement that they can engage in that's not the politics of hatred, that's not the politics of fear, but the politics of hope.
Filter Free Radio with Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott.
There's two ways to approach history. You sit in your armchair and you watch it on the news and you return to your PlayStation, or you get out in the streets and you make it.
They can push the rest of us to wake up and do something about this. People
need to rise up and say, I'm sick of this.
Filter Free Radio with Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott.
Seeing themselves as a huge movement to transform the nation.
The change that we want comes from below. It comes from a movement.
The American people can and will find ways to push for the kinds of changes that can get us out of this dilemma.
I want to see that change, and it's going to take people here in this country to be able to make that happen.
Filter Free Radio. FilterFreeRadio.com.
Tenacity can be an admirable trait in a leader, except when it's stupid. Stupid tenacity has afflicted several right-wing governors and legislators who grabbed hold of a bad idea that, in practice, has proven to be even worse than expected, yet they've clung to it like Captain Ahab on Moby Dick. The bad idea was to whoop up on the poor and jobless by making them submit to drug tests in order to get the benefit payments that can help hard-hit folks recover. Never mind that there was no evidence that such people are more likely than, say, a state legislator to be on drugs. Punishing those who are down on their luck is considered smart politics in right-wing circles. So 6 states have imposed drug tests on people who seek unemployment benefits, and 9 now require testing of welfare applicants. What could go wrong, asked the GOP officials as they rammed these vindictive insults into law. 3 things, actually. First, as predicted, very few drug users are being found. Second, administering this government intrusion is, very expensive for taxpayers. And third, courts have been ruling these sweeping government searches unconstitutional. Yet, pandering at all costs to the Tea Party fringe that dominates Republican elections, state lawmakers won't let go of this demonstrably bad idea of trying to humiliate people in need of a helping hand. Now, the fad is to pass suspicion-based laws that require applicants to fill out state questionnaires, then force those who seem to be a little suspicious to submit urine samples to the state. Texas and Mississippi, for example, are targeting those whose occupations might warrant drug testing. This is Jim Hightower saying, based on their dogged adherence to this stupid idea, I suggest that the occupation of lawmaker ought to top the list of those required by the state to pee in a cup.
What do the corporate powers from Wall Street to Walmart have in common? They hate the Hightower Lowdown. You can see why at www.hightowerlowdown.org.
Tune in to Liberal Justice Radio on the TuneIn app and tunein.com.
Hi, this is Kenny Pick, founder of Liberal Justice Radio, and I wanted to take a few minutes to let you know about our schedule here. First and foremost, on Mondays, you can check out Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott on Filter Free Radio, live from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern. Jacob and Scott give you unfiltered news, opinion, and analysis on stories that the mainstream media won't touch with a 10-foot pole. It's a fantastic show that you won't want to miss. Then on Tuesdays, there's my show, Turn Up the Night with Kenny Pick. I have many co-hosts, Tom, Deba, Matt, Kim, and Pete on Tuesdays. That's 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern. We have lots of laughs. We talk about politics. We talk about news. We talk about all kinds of stuff. You'll love it. We also have a Friday show, but we'll get to that momentarily. We're proud to announce that we have a brand new addition to our live family, and that's the Bradcast, of course, hosted by the world-renowned Brad Friedman of the Brad Blog and the Green News Report. And we're very happy to have him on from 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern every Wednesday. Then Thursdays, well, everybody gets the night off for good behavior. Then Friday comes back around, and yeah, that's right, Turn Up the Night is back. It's me, Tom, Deba, and Matt back for more fun. And again, that's Fridays live from 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern. Then Saturdays, from 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern, we have my good friend Adam Hebert with Mic Check Radio. You can check out him and his hosts, Rob and Wes. They talk politics, they talk geek culture, they talk science, and again, lots of laughs from those guys too. And again, that's Saturdays from 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern. That's when the shows are live. We encourage you to listen 24 hours a day if you humanly can. We would love that. That's Filter Free Radio, live every Monday from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern. Turn Up the Night with Kenny Pick, live from 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays. On Wednesdays, the Bradcast, live from 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern. Thursdays, we're off. Fridays, we're back with more Turn Up the Night from 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern. And then on Saturdays, it's Mic Check Radio, live from 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern. Nothing yet on Sunday, but you never know. We might throw a curveball. So please enjoy our live shows and the recent rebroadcasts that we run 24/7. And find out how to get in touch with us. Let us know how you're listening to Liberal Justice Radio and what you think of the programming and what you'd like to hear more of.
Liberal Justice Radio on the TuneIn app and TuneIn.com.
Begin transmission. This is Liberal Justice Radio.
Yeah, there's guns and glow lights and kids wear the vests.
Yeah, no, right. No, I know what it is.
Liberal Justice Radio on TuneIn and A Online Radio.
Thanks for supporting Filter Free Radio with Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott and giving power back to the people.
It is so good to be back live on the air. It is Thanksgiving week 2013, Monday, November 25th. Broadcasting live on our website, filterfreeradio.com. Just click on Watch Live. We're also on the home of Nicole Sandler, RadioOrNot.com. And as soon as we figure out some technical glitches here, we'll be live on Liberal Justice Radio as well. But this replay will definitely be up and ready on Liberal Justice Radio, at least. We'll get it there. It's great to see everyone in the chat room. Love you guys. Miss you guys. We want you to participate in the conversation. The number is the same, 503-746 Talk. You can call that number whether you're listening live or during the replayed podcast. You can call it anytime, 24/7, and leave us your voicemails, which go directly to me. There is no one else here. So 503-746 Talk. The email, jacob@filterfreeradio.com. You can also Skype into the program since we are online. We do the show online. We want to open that avenue up as well for you to participate. Skype us. My username is just Jacob_Dean, all lowercase. We've got the Twitter feed open in front of us at filterfreeradio.com. I want to give a shout out to Amanda Aldridge at A Screenwriter. And who was the other fellow? Someone else recently tweeted us saying, hey, we just found you. We love you. Where can we find out more about you? And it's great stuff. So folks are checking out the only show around that refuses to retreat from reality. I need to make like echo. Anyways, the audio producer brain just kicked on there. Anyways, it's good to be back with you. It's good to be back with my super duper awesome producer, co-host, and kick-ass all around good guy, brother from another mother, Mr. Skeptical Scott's in the house.
Hello.
Hello. Wait.
Hello.
There we go. And what's that, man?
I said, all right.
All right. And so much to get into. One of the things I want to talk about is the climate. Yay, climate. Because it's kind of a big deal. Our survival depends on it, right? Oh, what? You mean you're actually going to talk about, the reality of the situation here? Yes. Let's get into it a little bit. The last week, there was this, what do you call it, a horse and pony show, this bread and circus over there in Warsaw, this, what do they do it every year, and they make a big old huff-a-buff about it, and nothing ever fucking happens from it. The UN Climate Summit, that's what it is. Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman, democracynow.org. They were broadcasting live from the UN climate talks in Warsaw. And they had on a couple of revolutionary climate scientists that were featured in Naomi Klein's recent article on the climate, Why the Climate is Telling Us to Revolt. This really caught my attention. What some of these scientists were saying, and not actually what they were saying, but what they were doing and what they actually had to do. Keep in mind, here's a question while we play this clip. Think about how many people, all these like world leaders and the UN climate people, and stuff, how many people actually flew in to Warsaw to be at this place in airplanes, and then flew back. Think about that. Here's a clip from Democracy Now!
Of climate scientists who are calling for what some may view as a shocking solution to the climate crisis, a rethinking of the economic order in the United States and other industrialized nations. Their names are Kevin Anderson and Alice Bose-Larkin. They work at the influential Tyndall Centre for Climate Change Research in England, as well as the University of Manchester. They were featured in a recent widely read article by Naomi Klein, headlined, "How Science is Telling Us All to Revolt." According to Anderson and Bose-Larkin, many of the solutions proposed by world leaders to prevent runaway global warming will not be enough to address the scale of the crisis. They've called for, quote, radical and immediate degrowth strategies in the U.S., EU, and other wealthy nations. Anderson has said that to avoid an increase in temperature of 2 degrees Celsius, that's 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit, the world would require a, quote, revolutionary change to the political and economic hegemony. Kevin Anderson and Alice Bose-Larkin are here in Warsaw at the UN Climate Summit. We welcome you both to Democracy Now! It was rare to be able to actually sit across a table from you because I know you don't fly. You came here by train, Dr. Anderson.
Yeah, that's the case. I haven't flown for 8 years, and Alice for something similar, I think. Because of the carbon dioxide emissions from flying, I mean, it's sort of emblematic of modern life for the wealthy few of us. That it symbolises what we do day in, day out. We don't think twice about burning more and more carbon. So it's important for us to make what is a symbolic gesture, but then hopefully that catalyses action with other people to also say we too can make those sorts of changes.
I love that. It's kind of a symbolic gesture. You know, those of us, the wealthy few among us, we don't even think twice about hopping in our private jets to fly to wherever, you know. And so they took a train there, and it took them a day to get there. But I thought that was really interesting because I think there's another kind of theme to that, and that is, you know, this is a thing that we talked about often. Yes, we should consume less, and yes, we should recycle, and yes, we should, you know, try to get if you're going to have to commit to driving, you should have an electric car or a hybrid, right? But wait a minute. Now there's this article, and there's this idea that's almost insignificant because just 90 companies are causing over 2/3 of all of the global carbon emissions. And this is a theme that is come about in even people like Bill McKibben who've held really kind of conservative positions on the environment. I would say compared to someone like Derek Jensen, for example, even the Bill McKibbens out there are saying, yeah, it's time to focus our energy on shutting down the fossil fuel industry because you at your home recycling and hanging your clothes out to dry on the dry line and reusing and reducing and recycling really isn't going to cut it anymore, Al Gore.
Yeah, where's your Chris Hedges drop about how pernicious Al Gore is in the environmental movement?
I don't know if I have that ready. Do I have that ready?
You don't have it ready, but you got it somewhere in the archives. It's just the basic idea of the ownership and putting the onus back on the consumer as an excuse.
This is really not.
Well, wrong clip. Sorry.
It's putting the onus back on the consumer, and it creates a new alternative consumer culture. You know, buy fluorescent light bulbs, buy Priuses, buy. Mm. But the reality is, it's nothing to do with you or I. I mean, it's much larger than that, and you know, it's not in our immediate control, short of bringing down the system, and that's, you know, a far more serious issue than just recycling.
The climate crisis, this article from The Guardian, just 90 companies caused 2/3 of man-made global warming emissions. Chevron, Exxon, BP, among the companies most responsible for climate change since the dawn of the industrial age. The climate crisis of the 21st century has been caused largely by just 90 companies, which between them have produced nearly 2/3 of all of the greenhouse gas emissions generated since the dawn of the industrial age. That's going back since like 1750-ish. And the vast majority of these firms were in the business of, you guessed it, producing oil, gas, and coal. And there were a couple of cement producers in there, but generally speaking, oil, gas, and coal. There are thousands of oil, gas, and coal producers in the world, according this one climate researcher and author, Richard Head, said in this article. He goes on to say, quote, but the decision makers, the CEOs, or the ministers of coal and oil, if you narrow it down to just one person, they could all fit onto a Greyhound bus or two. And half of the estimated emissions that were produced in the past 25 years, well past the date when governments, corporations became aware of the rising greenhouse gas emissions from burning coal and oil, were causing dangerous climate change. Many of the same companies are also sitting on a substantial reserve of fossil fuels that have yet to be burned, planned to be burned, because they've already got it on their futures, on their money books, so they can claim the profits off of it. And if they do burn it, it puts the world at an even greater risk of dangerous climate change. And climate change experts say that this data is set the most ambitious effort so far to hold the individual carbon producers responsible rather than the governments, because you and I know that the carbon producers have long since bought off the government. They got those guys in their back pocket. Thank you very much. We'll see it. We'll see in 4 years. And these leaders that are meeting in Warsaw for the UN climate charade this last week, they're all clashing. You know, no, you're responsible for the climate crisis. No, you're responsible for. No, not us. No, it's America and Europe and India and China. And they're not actually there to solve anything. They're not actually there to do anything. They're just playing the blame game, pointing fingers at everyone else. You're responsible, not me. And if these so-called leaders actually fixed any of the problems with real sustainable solutions, they'd all be out of a job. So I can understand their need for job security, but unfortunately at the expense of the human species, I think not going to happen. So this article is really fascinating, and it goes into actually a little bit of naming and listing the 90 companies, including 50 investor-owned firms, mainly oil companies, Chevron, Exxon, BP, Royal Dutch Shell, coal producers such as the British Coal Corporation, Peabody Energy, BHP. There's 31 companies that made the list that were state-owned companies, such as Saudi Arabia's Saudi Aramco, and 9 were government-run industries producing mainly coal in China, the former Soviet Union, North Korea, and Poland. The challenge that we face moving forward in the space of not much more than time-wise a generation is we really have to go from this carbon-intensive energy system to a carbon-neutral energy system. And if we do that, essentially we have no chance of keeping climate change within the 2 degrees Celsius threshold, which is this level that all of the climate scientists said, if we go beyond this, if we warm the planet up beyond this, there is no stopping it, and it is a, we're doomed kind of thing. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but the existence of human species in the long term is not, shake up the 8 ball, outlook not good. What I get from this, though... What are you going to say, man?
I was going to say that that's part of Chris Hedges' new speech we're going to play later on, is where he talks about in the beginning, the UN climate study that came out about a couple of weeks ago, as well as the University of Hawaii climate study that indicates, and especially the University of Hawaii climate study that indicates that man-made global warming or climate change is going to become catastrophic at this point. There's nothing that's going to stop it. The best we could do is hope to mitigate it as well as begin to reverse it. But the damages are already happening. I mean, the acidification, what they call is the deadly trio of large mass extinctions, is already underway. With the acidification of the oceans, the warming of the atmosphere, and of course the runoff from nutrients from agriculture and things that create dead zones in the environment. So we already are in the midst of another one of these million-year or so large mass extinctions that happened to kill the dinosaurs in the Ice Age and so on. I mean, we're there, and the question really is, what are we going to do about it?
And what are we going to do about it? That's one of the things I really gathered from this article is it's not really me so much trying to recycle and me trying to consume less energy and to grow my own food in my backyard, even though those are all amazingly good ideas. It's more about me trying to shut down the fossil fuel industry as a whole, because why go after 33% when we can go after 66%? And it only is in 90 companies. I mean, the math is pretty easy on that one. Here is a clip that Scott reminded me of right before we came on the air of Derek Jensen on personal responsibility, I think really speaking to this point.
When you're absolutely powerless, you have to take on some power. Otherwise, you'll drive yourself insane. So to start going, I'm responsible for deforestation because I use toilet paper is an acknowledgement of my powerlessness in the larger scheme of things, but that's really dangerous because the truth is we do have power and we are culpable for something far greater than using toilet paper, which is for not stopping Weyerhaeuser. My responsibility for global warming is not because I drive a car, having been born into car culture. My responsibility is for not shutting down car culture as a whole. That's our responsibility, for not shutting down the whole system, which is much more serious.
I guarantee you ain't going to hear that on the corporate news tonight. Boom, shakalaka, you know what I'm saying?
It is much more serious. And that's what makes Al Gore so pernicious. And his big lie of, you'll be fine if you just buy the right products. Well, that's not true. And you're a bad person for not recycling. Well, that's also, not necessarily true, because the problem is we shouldn't be in a situation where we're forced to recycle plastics and these disposable items. I mean, we live in a disposable society, and it's killing us in more ways than one. So, I mean, rewiring ourselves to basically go back to the agrarian society over 100 years ago, where we're not reliant on these non-renewable sources for energy. We're not reliant on disposable means of transportation, disposable means of carrying our groceries or anything. I mean, everything we touch and see every day is plastic. I mean, which is petrochemicals, which is coming from the ground, which is dead dinosaurs from millions of years ago that we're just using to manipulate for our own benefit. It's unsustainable and it's killing us. And a reworking of that entire structure is what's needed, and recycling it just doesn't get at it.
Speaking of things that are like really serious, that have to do with our existence as a species in general and the climate, this was a fantastic conversation just the other day on Bill Moyers and Company on public broadcasting, the only thing really, in my opinion, worth watching on free TV anymore. If you pick up the digital broadcast over the antenna airwaves, so to speak, on TV, which is what I do. I've never once had cable in my life, not once, never paid for cable, satellite, none of that shit. And so Bill Moyers is about the only thing I look forward to watching on actual TV anymore, if I'm sitting down to watch TV. And he recently had on Dr. Jill Stein and Dr. Margaret Flowers for an amazing conversation that they put up, of course, at their website. It's at commondreams.org, all over the place. And we put a link to it on our Facebook page for more. I want to play a couple of clips because it ties into the climate conversation here. They're talking about Fukushima and maybe I have because I have a more personal stake, my ass is more physically on the line, the line being the West Coast here. I'm worried about the Fukushima radiation. You betcha. We've done multiple programs on the topic. We've had on multiple guests on the topics, and Snork Y2K in the chat room is one of the best. Actually, I want to share a story that he sent us here in a couple of minutes. Maybe we'll get Snork on after the break to talk about it for a minute if he's feeling inclined. And let that be an open invitation for anyone who wants to participate in the conversation. 503-746-TALK. That's why the numbers scroll here across the top of the screen. Back, though, Bill Moyers, Jill Stein, Margaret Flowers, Fukushima. This I thought was interesting.
You have so much to do here at home on the political issues that concern you. Why did you take on the Fukushima nuclear plant?
Well, the truth is what's going on in Fukushima really should be in the headlines of newspapers all over the world. This is regrettably an issue that puts all of us at risk. I mean, this is sort of writ very large what the dangers of nuclear power are.
And particularly that TEPCO, Tokyo Electric Power Company, is getting ready to remove 1,500 spent fuel rods, which are in a very delicate position, and this has really never been tried, what they're attempting to do. So we came to town to deliver a letter that was signed by organizations and people from 16 different countries, and petitions, over 150,000 petitions to the United Nations, calling for independent oversight and access to accurate information about what's going on there.
And if this removal of the fuel rods that are teetering in an unstable building 100 feet up in the air, some 1,500 of these fuel rods, they hold the radioactive fallout equivalent of some 14,000 Hiroshima bombs. And it's under the watch of a private nuclear power company that has been very much behind the 8 ball on this whole crisis, that has not disclosed what's been going on really and until long after the fact, and which has proven incapable of handling the crisis even up to this point.
There's a group of 16 international experts that have put together a plan for how this should be approached, and yet it's not getting any attention. So we really wanted to bring attention to that plan and bring the global attention to this problem.
And that seems to be the problem, essentially, is we're kept in the dark about what's really happening. Imagine that. Keep them dumbed down and entertained, and maybe they won't intervene. And this does need to be brought to attention, to the front page of the newspaper. I got to tell you, it didn't get quite to the front page of the Oregonian. It happened to get to the front page of the Metro section, which is a few sections back, and it's on the bottom of the page below the fold, and it's just this tiny little blurb, which I have here, that I've got to share with you. But here, real quick, though, this is Bill Moyers quoting Canadian scientist David Suzuki. Listen to this very closely. Anyone in Washington State, Oregon State, California, the Pacific Ocean, or near Japan, anywhere between there, this is for you.
The meltdown of reactors there after the earthquake and tsunami of March 2011 still threatens much of the world with radiation. Japanese officials now say that residents of the area will never be able to return to their homes. Radiation from the disaster has reached Alaska, and the Canadian scientist David Suzuki recently called attention to research saying that another quake hitting Fukushima could mean bye-bye Japan, and everybody on the west coast of North America should evacuate.
Everyone on the west coast should evacuate.
How long has Snork Y2K been saying that one?
Right. How many times has he been on this program saying that? Oh, by the way, breaking news, we are now officially live on Liberal Justice Radio. Big thanks to Adam Hebert of Mic Check Radio for helping us with the technical difficulties on there. And yes, we are live. It's been 3 months since you've heard my voice on Liberal Justice Radio on the TuneIn app and all that good jazz. We're back, baby. Filter Free Radio is back. And we're just about ready to run to a quick break. I want to play this last clip, squeak this in, and then we'll check in with the Green News Report, Brad Friedman, for the rest on the climate chat.
We've seen now that, the increased attention, more and more that's being written about it in the media. So we're starting to see some movement, and we have to just keep building that attention, focusing that attention on it so that they feel like they have to do something. We need to be asking our own government agencies to be testing our food, testing our water, testing the West Coast for radiation. We need to be pressing for accurate information about what's going on in Japan. These are the things that people can be doing right now.
Hell yes. And I'm going to share with you a fine example of what someone here in Oregon is doing, taking his own safety and the safety of his communities on the Oregon coast in his own hands. A great story that was sent to us from one of our listeners. I'm going to share that with you next. Also, Chris Hedges on the myth of human progress and the collapse of complex societies. We're going to get into it on the next hour. Filter Free Radio Live. We're back. Jacob Dean, Skeptical Scott, our website, filterfreeradio.com. live also on the home of Nicole Sandler, radioornot.com, and now broadcasting live on Liberal Justice Radio this Monday afternoon or evening, wherever you may be. 5 o'clock here on the West Coast. We'll be right back.
Come experience the next generation of progressive voices on Nicole Sandler's RadioOrNot.com. Liberate yourself with filter-free radio every Monday night.
So our message to our political leaders, nature does not negotiate.
Impasse at the UN Climate Summit as developing nations walk out.
We are the first human beings to ever breathe air with 400 parts per million of CO2.
Just 90 companies are responsible for most of man-made global warming.
So much rain in the last 24, 36 hours, unheard of.
Apocalyptic rains strike again, this time in Sardinia. Plus, did you hear the one about the Polish environment minister who was fired in the middle of the UN Climate Summit in Poland?
All of those Polish non-jokes and more straight ahead. From BradBlog.com, I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
The blockers, the big blockers, Australia, Japan, US, Canada, not agreeing to any of the commitments that they've already legally signed up to.
Oh, right. Always blame the bloggers. It's always the bloggers' fault for everything.
Wait.
Now
Brad, it's blockers, not bloggers. Blockers. The big countries blocking climate action.
Oh. Well, them. This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, we have been asking listeners this week to please help support the Green News Report's efforts to connect the climate dots. We really need you folks to stop on by bradblog.com and donate to our efforts so we can keep doing our work over your public airwaves. And we were reminded again how important this is when, 17 inches of rain were dumped on Sardinia in Italy in like 24 hours?
Yeah.
Connecting the dots. That's what we're trying to do, folks. We need your help. Go to bradblog.com and donate.
Well, first it was biblical floods in Boulder, Colorado in September. Now they've come to Sardinia.
There's been so much rain in the last 24, 36 hours, unheard of. One official called it apocalyptic.
The latest in a string of deadly extreme weather disasters around the world. At least 18 people killed in flash floods on the island of Sardinia off the coast of Italy after a Mediterranean cyclone dumped 17 inches. That's 6 months of rain in less than 24 hours.
But nothing to see here, folks. Nothing at all.
They had lots to see there. It caused flash floods in some areas as high as 10 feet. Meteorologists said the storm stalled over Sardinia due to a blocking pattern in the jet stream. Some scientists theorize the jet stream is slowing down because of loss of sea ice in the Arctic. Impasse at the UN Climate Summit.
Our message to our political leaders, nature does not negotiate. You cannot change the science.
That was Kumi Naidu, head of Greenpeace International, after walking out of the UN climate treaty talks, which conclude this Sunday in Warsaw, Poland. 133 developing nations, big international environmental groups like Greenpeace, and hundreds of activists walked out of the negotiations, blaming rich countries and the powerful fossil fuel industry for blocking progress on emissions cuts and financial aid to developing nations.
Our political leaders have the temerity to tolerate that we are called hooligans, when in fact the real hooligans are the CEOs and the big bosses of oil, coal and gas companies that have completely captured our governments and have completely captured this negotiating process.
At the summit, Japan, Australia, and Canada all dialed back their previous commitments to cut their own emissions by 2020.
They lowered their commitments from previous negotiations?
Yes, they have reduced what they've pledged to do. And that's a big problem, according to a new report from Climate Action Tracker, which calculates that the current emissions path we're on has put the planet on track for a likely global temperature increase of nearly 4 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels.
With that in mind, these major countries are now going backwards in these negotiations?
That's right.
Amazing.
That temperature is double what scientists predict is a safer and adaptable rise of 2 degrees Celsius.
Oh, man.
The report calls 4 degrees Celsius, quote, incompatible with organized global community and potentially beyond adaptation.
Once again, nothing to see here, people.
Meanwhile, Poland, the host of the UN summit, fired its environment minister in the middle of the UN conference on Wednesday and replaced him with a new environment minister who will focus on natural gas and coal.
Meaning focus on limiting natural gas and coal.
No, accelerating natural gas and coal.
What the hell is going on here?
I know, right?
This is a mess.
Poland also hosted the annual meeting of the World Coal Association at the same time and just a mile away from the UN Climate Summit. So perhaps Poland is not clear on the concept of climate change.
Sounds like we'd do better if we stopped having these UN climate talks every year.
That may be the case. Finally, just 90 companies in the world are responsible for 2/3 of human-caused global warming. That's according to a new study in the journal Climatic Change that says big oil companies like ExxonMobil and BP and big coal make up most of the dirty 90 companies responsible for most of the world's emissions.
And so all of this fight is about them, is about protecting their profits, really?
That's what it looks like.
Unbelievable. For much more on all of this, please check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com. And like I say, please consider a donation to help the Green News Report continue connecting the dots of the climate crisis. We really need you. Find us and like us on the Facebook and follow us 24/7 on the Twitters at Green News Report. From bradblog.com, I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
And this has been your Green News Report.
It's another fine mess you've gotten us into. Sentenced to hang for committing this crime. I tried to explain, but I couldn't begin to. I couldn't recall.
Good transmission. This is Liberal Justice Radio.
It's not real. It's just a computer-generated fantasy.
Liberal Justice Radio on TuneIn and A Online Radio.
Looking for filters? Check your coffee maker. This is Filter Free Radio with Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott. FilterFreeRadio.com. Get ready to suck down some grounds.
When I talk about resistance, I think we have to stand up now and carry out acts of nonviolent resistance.
Because the truth is, we do have power.
We live in revolutionary times, but the counter-revolution is winning.
Sounds like a case of the Mondays.
Live Monday, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern. FilterFreeRadio.com.
This is my favorite show.
We have been given an opportunity to make a new beginning.
And I think it's very important for us to start to build a culture of resistance because what we're doing isn't working, clearly.
It's our job to very coldly assess reality and then figure out how to respond.
Your number one source for unfiltered truth, analysis, and solutions. FilterFreeRadio.com.
We've been gone for about 2 weeks. I can't give you a recap of all the that happened over the past day. Every major story of interest, but I can tell you this. We're back, baby!
We are back. It is so good to be back with you live for the first time in about 3 months. Broadcasting live on our website, filterfreeradio.com. Also on the home of Nicole Sandler, radioornot.com. And now, officially, I know for a fact, we are live on Liberal Justice Radio on the TuneIn. And I think it's also available at Kenny Pick's website, kennypick.com. So it is so good to be with you, however you are joining us. We want to participate with you, have you participate with us. The telephone number that you can call anytime, 503-746-TALK. It's 503-746-TALK. The email, jacob@filterfreeradio.com. You can Skype into the show, Jacob_Dean. Follow us and tweet us on Twitter at FilterFreeRadio. And on Facebook, facebook.com/FilterFreeRadio. Please participate with the program, and we'll look forward to your emails, and all that comes directly to us. And this next story came to us via email.
You've got mail.
Stick it in the mailbox. Why don't you stick it in the mailbox and I'll give it to you when I can.
Oh, is that the mail? Is there anything in there for me?
What's this? A letter for me.
Hello, you've reached Jacob. Sorry he can't get to his phone right now. Please leave a message and he will get back to you. Thanks, and have a great day.
Want to give a tip of the hat to Filter Free Radio listener and avid chat room participant there, Snork Y2K, who sent me this email with this really cool video from the Oregonian's website of this fellow Andy Norris. Snork sent me this email last week, a couple weeks ago, getting ready for the return of the show, and I checked it out, and I shit you not, Snork, the Oregonian printed up a little article in the Metro section about it today, titled, "After Fukushima, Seafood Still Safe. Health Officials Say." That's the title of the little blurb below the fold on the Metro in 4 or 5 sections in the back. And this is a very awesome story, because the clip that we played right before we went into the break was of Dr. Jill Stein and Dr. Margaret Flowers talking about how serious the Fukushima thing is and how people need to be getting involved on it. And Andy Norris is a Manzanita resident here in Oregon. Of course, I'm coming to you live from Portland, Oregon. This is my home, and a proud native Oregonian. And a fellow by the name of Andy Norris. He is a 42-year-old documentary filmmaker. He lives in Manzanita. It's a little coastal city on the coast of Oregon, on the Pacific coast of the United States, right? And he has already eliminated eating local seaweed from his diet after reading about all of the radiation that has been found in the California kelp post-Fukushima. This is what Andy Norris is doing. He is basically single-handedly organizing and fundraising to get a Geiger counter for his community. That's right. He is fundraising and organizing a fundraiser, donations and such, so that essentially the communities between Tillamook and Clatsop on the Oregon coast have a Geiger counter that they can share and measure the radiation that's coming in from Fukushima, and that has been coming in from the last 2 years, and it's been leaking for the past 2 years. The article, I'm going to read just a touch of the article from the Oregonian, because I'm really disappointed in the position that the article takes. Of course, the corporate-owned, I think it's the New York Times owns the Oregonian. The headline says it all. After Fukushima, seafood still safe. Come on down and eat that tuna. It's all good. No radiation here. A pocket of doubt, I'm reading from the article, a pocket of doubt persists despite reassurances from scientists and federal health regulators that Pacific caught seafood is safe to eat. You flip to the back side, of course, buried in the back of the newspaper, not on the front page. Health officials say Fukushima radiation does not pose a public threat in the United States. Oh, well, then it's all good. Nothing to worry about. We can just move on and it's all good, right? More than 2 years after the 9.0 earthquake, an estimated 45-foot tsunami crippled the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant in northern Japan and caused a triple meltdown, Oregon state scientists have continued finding slight radioactive particles in local albacore tuna, which migrate through the Pacific Ocean. And then the article goes on to, of course, mention, well, radiation also naturally surrounds us. We're exposed to it all the time, from cosmic rays, from naturally occurring radon gas. We receive doses from medical and dental x-rays. Migratory fish in the Pacific have been exposed to it for decades. So nothing really to, again, worry about. The article ends by saying this: both the Nuclear Regulatory Commission and the Federal Food and Drug Administration say the leak won't impact public health in the United States based on existing evidence, though testing shows more radioactive particles in seaweed near the plant than before the accident. Okay, so let me go back to Andy Norris. This is the video that was sent to us from Snork. And I don't actually have the whole video ready. I've just got the audio ready. And I'm sure the Oregonian would try to sue me or come after us for that. So I'm just going to play the audio of Andy Norris talking about organizing his community and fundraising in his community so they can have a community-shared Geiger counter because, hey, we are concerned about our health. Here is Andy Norris. This video from the Oregonian's website, OregonLive.com.
My name is Andy Norris, and I live in Manzanita. And like many folks out there, I've been watching tsunami debris wash up for a long time now, and we're concerned that this stuff could have radioactive elements to it, and we want to know on the coast whether or not that's in fact the case. So we're pooling resources. We're buying a community Geiger counter. It's going to be shared between the people of Tillamook County and Clatsop County, and we just want to test stuff to see whether or not there is significant levels of radiation in the fish or in the debris, in the seaweed, and it's important to us. And it's not like a sky is falling thing. We just want to know if it's there, and it's a very valid concern. This is a huge nuclear accident. It's not done. It's getting hotter. There's 400 tons of water, radioactive water is being dumped into the Pacific Ocean every day. There's a lot of dangerous operations in the cleanup that are coming up that could result in an explosion and fission, and it's extremely dangerous. So we think it's prudent to be doing some testing. They found in Monterey, there's been radioactive iodine found in the seaweeds, and tuna caught in Mexico. Because the tuna and the salmon swim in big circles in the ocean. So we think it's a good idea to test the salmon coming in as well, Garibaldi and Astoria, the tuna coming into Garibaldi and Astoria, and see. And it's not going to go away soon. I mean, it's still coming over. It's still melting down, and this is going to go on for years, if not decades. So it's not a sky is falling thing. It's just a very sensible thing. We believe a very sensible idea to buy this community Geiger counter, and that's going to just show us the gamma rays. The alpha and beta rays are more harmful, but if you find the gamma rays, you can bet that the alpha and beta rays are there. So personally, I've stopped eating seaweed from Nehalem Bay, where I live, and I'm about to phase tuna out of my diet because it's the accumulation of the radioactivity, the radiation that is the worry. The fish aren't going to glow in the dark. We're not going to sprout 3 legs, but the worry is over time we see a degradation of vitality in the whole ecosystem, in the fish as well as the people, and the bears, and the eagles, and so it's a concern. So we just want to know if it's there, and the government entities are doing some testing, and that's great. We just want to add to that effort. We're not saying they're not doing enough. We just want to add to that effort, and it just makes sense to us. So that's what we're doing.
A very diplomatic take there, Andy. You should run for local office. Let me chime in and say, the sky is fucking falling. The ocean is dying.
Hey, he sounded optimistic or cautious or whatever.
I mean, I am optimistic because I believe we still have a chance to do something about it, that we can actually do something about it. And that's why I want to talk about it. That's why we do these shows and we try to do something about it. I do remain optimistic. It's just that I think we need to wake up to the reality so we can save ourselves.
I think pessimism and optimism are vapid terms. I mean, the reality is, we have to be in touch with reality. I mean, that's the truth. The truth is we have to be in touch with reality. And not being optimism or pessimism has nothing to do with being realistic. And so, to coldly assess reality and understand what is really happening, and then respond rationally in the best manner possible is what's necessary. And that's just not happening right now in any aspects of our lives, from capitalism to the environment, to you name it. We're being controlled by this cabal of wealthy individuals, and it's not in their best interest financially to do what is right for the planet and the human species. And to acknowledge that is a really hard reality. And so that's why TEPCO is still in charge of Fukushima, or Fukushima. It's just, it's insanity. Yeah, so it's just bad news.
I I was hoping that maybe Snork would be able to call in. I know he said he was able to, but I just looked at the clock and how many clips of Chris Hedges that I want to get to, and I would, rather than try to rush two different things in the amount of time we've got, let's, I just want to move forward to Chris Hedges, and then Snork, maybe you're able to join us on our next program in the next coming weeks or something.
Hold Chris Hedges over for the next program.
Yeah, hey, either way. So it's all good. We got plenty. We always prepare a ton of stuff, and there's always...
I just think the harsh... I mean, I've listened to his speech, and I read his articles every week, and it's an overwhelming and very philosophical, existential discussion about humanity and its irrelevance, and so it's a whole different level of what we're talking about right now. So I mean, if we want to expound more on Fukushima and our finite existence and what we can do about it, then that's great. But to get into Chris Hedges right now isn't going to work in the time we have left.
Well, yeah, it takes. I think I've got like 15 clips, at least, and most of them are about a minute long on average. Some are shorter, but like Scott is essentially saying here, that it's not something that is easily put into sound bites, A, and B, not something that should be consumed in only sound bites. That's why, of course, I talk about all the time how we hate the limitations of corporate media because it's all about making money. It's all about more commercials and less content, so they can't get into a deep, dense conversation and tell them how it really is. You have to put everything in 5-second sound bites. One of the things we try to do on this program is to take our time with the more important issues of the time, because really you can't solve complex problems with simple solutions. And unfortunately, is kind of what's going on here. Where we just, throw more money at it, or tweak this or that, or let's not talk about the fundamental flaws in the structural root of the problems.
Yeah, let's just focus on our day-to-day, which are just addressing symptoms of a disease, and it's the whole macro versus micro struggle. I mean, you obviously need all facets, but to only place emphasis on the individual and the minutia of what is really killing us, or as part of our struggle, and ignore the larger picture, is just we do that to our own detriment, and it's only a half truth at best.
Right. And I'm sure that, in the past, any time that we've gone through his speeches of Chris Hedges or Derek Jensen or Howard Zinn or Noam Chomsky or Cornel West, anytime that we've gone through those speeches and played those clips, we've always put the entire piece in its entirety up either on our website or on our Facebook page. So if you're so inclined, which I really hope you are, you can dive into it and get to take in the whole thing in context. And the Chris Hedges that we were going to get into, the speech at Moravian College, The Myth of Human Progress and the Collapse of Complex Societies, is no different. It is on our homepage at filterfreeradio.com. And even though the video, if you click on the video, the YouTube thing says like an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes, his speech is only the first 45 minutes of that video. And then there's a whole nother question and answer period. So it's not even as long as it looks if you want to dive into the whole thing. It's only 40 minutes long. But like I said at the beginning of the show, each sentence in that whole 45-minute speech, each sentence I could do a whole 2-hour show on. That's how dense it is.
Even partial sentences. It's really, I've listened to it probably a dozen times already in its entirety, and I can't even recall complete sentences. It's immensely dense. And he footnotes every one of his statements because it's like, even in one sentence, he quotes Albert Camus and Socrates and Emma Goldman and Hannah Arendt, all in one sentence, and footnotes it, and you're just like, wow, I gotta go back and listen to that again. You know what I mean? It's really, it's worth a listen multiple times, and it's a tough reality to grasp. So I think we should save it for a later date and get Snorkel in line.
Well, yeah, we can do that. We've got to take a short break here in a couple of minutes, so let's go ahead and take the break, and then we'll come back. We'll get Snork on, and we'll continue this conversation into the Fukushima and the climate conversation that we've been having here a little bit. Of course, the UN climate charade last week. And then Snork sent me that article of what Andy Norris is doing here in Oregon, saying, hey, you know, the health officials here in Oregon are saying the seafood's fine. They're saying it's all good. Eat the salmon out of the Nehalem Bay. You know, we got nothing to worry about. And when you watch the news here, which I live in Portland, I turn on the local news at 5 o'clock at night or 6 o'clock and skim through the fluff on TV every once in a while. Not once have they come back to the seriousness of this. It's going to be one of those, you know, a couple of people were screaming about it while it was going on, but most of us didn't know a damn thing about it until it was way too late. You know what I'm saying? So, And that's the reality here. And then Snork sends us this article of Andy Norris on the Oregon coast saying, okay, we're going to organize and collect funds so we can have a community Geiger counter to measure the radiation. Wow. Good on you, Andy. Good on you, Snork, for sending that to us. And anytime you come across the story or something like that that you want to share with us that you think we should be talking about, I want to hear from it so we can participate and have a conversation rather than a monologue. I love to hear myself talk, but eventually I get tired of myself too. So let's bring more voices into the conversation. And you can always email us. All the info scrolling across the top of your screen. You can call us. The telephone number is always open. And I think that's a fantastic plan, Mr. Scott. Let's go ahead and take a break. We'll hold the Chris Hedges for the next program. And just start there and dive into that then, because it's really good stuff. And hey, that also gives you a chance to go watch the video for yourself on our website at filterfreeradio.com, and then, you know, get familiar with it. And then when we break it down, it'll break down a lot more easier. It'll make a lot more sense. And like Scott was just saying, it's one of those things that's so dense you got to listen to 3 or 4 times before you're really getting what he's saying. And of course that's kind of the case how it is with Chris Hedges anyways, but and you know, that's kind of the case with our good friend Snork, who's going to be joining us coming up here in a couple of minutes. I mean, like, I learned so much from Snork. And so let's talk about Andy Norris and the Geiger counter. Let's talk about Fukushima. Let's talk about the radiation. Should we be afraid? Should we be evacuating the West Coast like the Canadian scientist David Suzuki says? Of course, if another earthquake hits, it's game over. So we're going to take a real short break. I've got to share with you the latest from Lee Camp. LeeCamp.net is his website. The moment of clarity right here. Dystopia will not attack us. It will just simply slowly overcome us. Lee Camp coming up right now. You don't want to go anywhere. And then when we come back, more filter-free radio. Jacob Dean, Skeptical Scott, Snork Y2K. And hey, the line's open. If you want to participate, 503-746-TALK. Email Jacob at filterfreeradio.com, Twitter at filterfreeradio.com, or send us a message on Facebook, facebook.com/filterfreeradio. We will be right back.
We need a movement of truth tellers.
The kind of progressive grassroots movement.
A social movement that they can engage in that's not the politics of hatred, that's not the politics of fear, but the politics of hope.
Filter Free Radio with Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott.
There's 2 ways to approach history. You sit in your armchair and you watch it on the news and you return to your PlayStation, or you get out in the streets and you make it.
They can push the rest of us to wake up and do something about this. People need to rise up and say, I'm sick of this.
Filter Free Radio with Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott.
Seeing themselves as a huge movement to transform the nation.
The change that we want comes from below. It comes from a movement.
The American people can and will find ways to push for the kinds of changes that can get us out of this dilemma.
I want to see that change, and it's going to take people here in this country to be able to make that happen.
Filter Free Radio. FilterFreeRadio.com.
We got no plans at all. Evil man's always transcending. Fighter like sheep, swallow everything. Always simpletons or pretending.
It's your moment of clarity from LeeCamp.net. We as humans are very good at noticing sudden changes. Like if you get punched in the face or if a flood comes sweeping down your street, you almost definitely notice unless you're deep into a crossword puzzle trying to figure out a 14-letter word for a foul-mouthed Parisian's motto, in which case you may find yourself surfing down the street with dogs and trees and cars and shit going, pardon my French, I should have gotten that one. Anyway, point is, we're generally pretty good at noticing sudden changes. We're not good at noticing subtle changes. We're terrible at it. This is one reason things like police militarization have grown largely unchecked. The police didn't transform overnight from Johnny on the beat with only a nightstick to Rambo gonna beat your head in with an assault rifle. If only I could find someone to scratch my shoulder for me first. Because this massive bicep is making it difficult to do standard human maneuvers. Please, someone help. No, that change was done gradually, over decades, because large groups of people generally habituate to the new normal. The next generation accepts a new baseline. Corporations didn't stick their greed pole up our collective ass all in one foul thrust. Otherwise, we would have gone, whoa, hey, easy with the pole. No. They did it slowly, over years and years. And now kids that are teenagers today just think it's normal to have 6 or 8 corporations controlling almost everything we buy, touch, breathe, or finger. You can go down the list and look at how important it is for these changes to happen gradually, even if it's only over a few years. And then, if there does come a moment when the American people start to say, hey, you can't listen to our phone calls, the corporatocracy will go, we've been doing it for years. Nothing is changing. They said that with indefinite detention of American citizens and with torture and hydrofracking and many other intrusions. We've been breaking this law for years and years, all right? All we're doing now is codifying it. And I know that's a big word, but I tell you what, you don't worry your little head about it. You just go take a nappy poo and you feel better in the morning. Habituation is also the reason we're unable to deal with climate change in the slightest. Because our downfall is happening in slow motion, it doesn't seem to matter that it's right in front of us. We'll deal with the tornado that is coming towards us at that moment. Everybody down in the basement, bring the dog I like. Leave the yappy one out in the yard. Yeah, leave him. But we won't deal with the larger, slower, more powerful issue that is causing the increase in tornadoes or flooding or drought. And now the authorities are using this technique to slowly criminalize dissent. A peaceful activist named Reverend Billy is facing a year in jail for dancing and speaking inside a Chase bank in order to call attention to the bank's contribution to environmental destruction. Many people are not even shocked by this because they've accepted the slow criminalization of protest. Could you imagine if a man gets locked away for singing and dancing inside a bank while no one at JP Morgan Chase sees prison time for the complete and utter ransacking of the U.S. economy and homeowners across the nation? What would it say about us if we stand by and accept that as the new normal? If we're not willing to stand up against this shit show of a corporatized kangaroo court, then what the fuck are we willing to stand up against? And I apologize to the kangaroo for dragging their adorable, ridiculous asses into this discussion. They did nothing wrong but hop around, and here we are relating them to our travesty of a tragedy, our hysterically cynical criminal judicial system. But then again, maybe the kangaroos aren't as innocent as they look. They do hop around, and if you do that inside a Chase bank, you might get a year in jail. In the description to this video, there's a link to a petition to help make sure Reverend Billy does not get locked away for a year. Please go there and sign the petition. That's been your moment of clarity from LeeCamp.net. I'm coming to perform live in Los Angeles and Montreal. Details are at LeeCamp.net. The music here at the end is Truth of the Matter by Doko. That link is in the description. Keep fighting.
They say crime don't pay. Don't go and making a goddamn dime to this day. I still got a day job and I still pay rent. Still fighting for liberation, still heading the government. Still hoping that prosperity is just around the corner.
Begin transmission. This is Liberal Justice Radio.
Children of the night, what music they make.
Liberal Justice Radio on TuneIn and A Online Radio.
Raising awareness and eyebrows, this is Filter Free Radio with Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott.
And welcome back. So good to be back live on the air. Man, it's been too long. Had to dust off the microphone, dust off the audio board. Technical difficulties here and there. We're working through it. It's great to be back live with you. We've missed it. I've missed it. And I'm speechless. It's been so long. Oh, I've missed you. Oh, so good to be back. Live. It is Thanksgiving week. Are you thankful for unfettered capitalism? If you've missed the first hour conversation, it was a great one. You have to go back and podcast it. We've been talking about the climate news all around us, the 90 companies or so that they've listed in a new article that came out on I think The Guardian put it out, the 90 companies that are responsible for 2/3 of the total carbon. We talked about the Democracy Now's coverage live from Warsaw at the UN climate talks. We played a couple clips from that. Played a couple clips from Bill Moyers when he had on Dr. Jill Stein and Dr. Margaret Flowers, the positive path for resistance, and talking about Fukushima. And then we transitioned into a story that was sent to us via email. And anytime you've got a story, you got a news, something you want to contribute to the program, you want to get a hold of us, all of our info is scrolling here across the top of your screen. And if you can't find it, filterfreeradio.com, it's good stuff. What, you love my mispronunciations? They are fun? What the hell are you talking about? What'd I say this time?
Warsaw. It's Warsaw.
Warsaw. What did I say?
Warsaw.
Warsaw. Damn it, Scott. Damn it, man.
I love it. It's great, dude.
I'm rusty.
Nuclear.
I'm rusty. I'm rusty. Okay.
I thought you were Jacob.
Anyways, our last story, which I loved, was sent to us via email from one of our listeners, one of our favorite guys out there. And again, if you want to contribute to the show, we're always open to anything that you've got for us. We'd love to hear from you. Snork Y2K is on the line with us, the avid chat room member there, and the fellow that sent us this last story of. And he's been on the show many a times. Our ecology. Nuclear engineer-esque extraordinaire, shall we say? Mitch, man, it's so good to hear from you. How you doing?
Hello, yeah, doing fine. Thanks for having me on there. One aspect that I have not seen with all of this debris washing ashore is what safety precautions people should be taking if they encounter any debris coming from Japan. A large portion of the radiation that's going to be coming across, that's going to be attached to objects that are in the water, is going to be alpha emitters. Again, he said he's buying a piece of equipment that's not going to detect alpha. Alpha harms your eyes. Your eyes are going to be the most vulnerable because they're right out there in the open, just hanging there, or whatever. That you don't have that layer of skin protecting them.
Right.
And pair of industrial safety glasses with side shields. If you're going to be encountering this debris and you don't know if it's radioactive or not, you probably should have that on, especially if you're seeing large amounts of big items that have been hanging out at the surface of the water for a long period of time.
One of the things that I did while we were on our super duper extra long extended vacation over, at the tail end of this last summer, couple months ago, was I went to the coast for a couple of days vacation, and at this state park in Newport on the Oregon coast, and I found this, and I took a picture of it, and I think I sent it to Scott, but I found this picture of this, warning, tsunami debris, if you come in contact with, do not touch, do not pick up, et cetera, et cetera. I found one of those signs, and I snapped a picture of it. I'll have to put it up on the screen or something next week once I figure out where it is. But yeah, and
I thought I said to bag it and put it in a trash can.
Well, there was a big beach cleanup that was organized by Solve Oregon, and they've been doing a lot of that, but off and on over the last 2 years. But why is this such a big deal? Because it's not. I don't hear it on the TV. I don't hear it on the radio. I don't. As far as I know, nothing's going on, and the health department says everything's just fine. Keep eating the tuna; it's all good. Is there a real big issue? Is this guy actually doing a smart thing by trying to get a community Geiger counter, or is this just way overkill?
I think it's a step in the right direction. I think he will be absolutely frightened the first time he turns on the detector, even if Fukushima hadn't happened. When you turn on a Geiger counter and you've never turned one on before, they start singing a very low note, even background radiation. If you're around a lot of concrete, especially if you're around a lot of materials like granite, you just hear them sing, and it is a shocking thing to suddenly realize how much radiation you're bathed in when you start to think of some of this debris in the 10,000 to 100,000 times background. They're playing very high notes. You're no longer hearing tut 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 like you hear on a TV show, where you can turn down the number of hits, where you get a click for every 10 clicks, or a click for every 10 radioactive disintegrations, or 1,000. You can put the multiplier up, so you can say, only give me one click for every 1,000 that you hear. Mm-hmm. So when you first hear it, and it comes across as a note, not as a bunch of taps, that's kind of frightening. I've been through that experience. In our case, we had actual real radiation there. Mm-hmm. And of course, we had a pretty high note. I'm not a musician, so I couldn't tell you, but it would be very high on your scale on the piano. You'd be making a reach with your right hand. So, again, there are some safety precautions that need to be handled that the public isn't being made aware of, because they're being told it's absolutely safe. Right. We don't know if it's safe, and if you don't have the tools to predict it, but it's a likely event to happen, I do believe at least the minimum you should have is eye protection at the beach.
If can you use a Geiger counter to test food, or a fish, or is that
definitely? You will see the cesium, and cesium will attack your heart, because your heart is a muscle. It destroys muscles, and your heart encounters almost all your blood before anything goes through any other muscle. It's gone through your heart. So your most likely muscle to encounter a given drop of blood is your heart.
I love to eat salmon, I will admit it, and I've got really good friends that love to go down to the coast in Nehalem Bay, near Manzanita, where this guy is at, and catch salmon on the salmon runs. And people I've talked to, even the people that are aware of what's going on, no one is not eating fish yet. No one is stopping eating the salmon or the tuna yet. And you think that's a good idea, or would you eat the fish?
No.
No, I wouldn't eat that shit.
Huh. No, just how bad is it, Snork?
Of the salmon being caught in Vancouver, I believe you. I just spoke with the Vancouver resident a week and a half ago. She said she couldn't find any that weren't bleeding, that didn't look sick. She couldn't find any food that she would feed her family, and she was wondering if that was related. Well, I wouldn't put it past some of the species are just non-existent this year. And for some reason, the anchovies are all migrating to California. So the anchovies and what's the other one? Sardines are almost absent in the Northwest right now.
Oh, good. I just bought a can of sardines. Maybe I should not eat that.
Check. Your sardines might actually be coming from Atlantic.
No, note to self: check sardines.
So basically, there's no safe fish to eat out of the Pacific Ocean. Is that right?
That's what I would assume. There's no hard data. That's kind of the scariest part. Is why isn't this data being provided and being provided in a timely fashion? My personal belief is that it would crash the land value of anything in the coastal states.
Exactly. They don't want to incite panic. That's exactly what I was thinking earlier today when we were when I was getting ready for the show. So I guess what is for you, Snork, because your capacity is way beyond mine, man, and God bless you for handling it. What do we need to know that stands out to you, and what should we be doing? Should I go buy a Geiger counter and start testing shit, or
you may want to consider something like that in a few months.
Okay.
I don't think the worst is going to hit yet. And remember, the initial release of radiation was majority of it iodine that would be hitting in the area, and it's been more than 10 weeks. So after 10 weeks, we would expect that to have dissipated into the background, where you shouldn't be able to detect that anymore, and you shouldn't be getting harmed for it unless there is what's called a recriticality. If that's the case, you should go another 10 weeks of being ready for a heavy dose of iodine. Last time that passed through the United States, all of our monitors were taken offline for recalibration.
That's right. When was that again?
That would have been within the first few days of the accident.
Awesome. That's like what, 2011, somewhere in March 2011, I think.
Yes.
But I think for me, the real scary thing about this is kind of going back to what Lee Camp was talking about in the bit we played on the break. Is this isn't the changes or the effects or the mutations, so to speak, aren't really all going to be instantaneous, right? This is like a slow, gradual thing that over the course of time it gets worse and worse until it's too late, right? Or
well, it depends on the distance you're away from it. Already in Japan, they're seeing what's called mosaicism, which is the absolute most horrific result of radiation exposure that you can imagine, where the cells, as they divide, lose the signal that tells them, okay, I don't need another arm, or I don't need another what, and just keep building it and get caught in that loop. A creature that normally has 2 eyes might have 100. Flowers are seeing the mosaicism already with just multiple buds, just keep bud up out of one flower, and it's spelled MOSAICISIM. And once you see mosaicism, you're into some pretty heavy exposures. The majority of the exposures that we should expect first would be cesium, where young creatures just aren't viably making it past gestation. Eggs not finishing up, so you'd see extremely heavy losses in the number of replenishment of stocks of fish, maybe. You'd see mammals not having children. And I think we are seeing that in parts of Alaska already.
One of the other things that I know I've done in the past, and I've got friends of mine here locally that do it, is they go to the Oregon coast and they crab. They catch Dungeness crabs and go crabbing. Lincoln City, Newport, all sorts of places in boats, off docks. What about the crab? You think the crab is safe? Is it more or less safe than the fish because they're like hanging out on the bottom, or?
Being the bottom isn't really the worst part. It's how many creatures they've eaten. The concentration tends to be, the smaller the creature is, the less concentration it's going to have. Starting from ambient, your body filters and takes in nutrients out of the seawater. Well, then that body gets eaten, and the next one isn't just has the ambient amount of materials in it that the seawater has. It has also taken this concentrated amount from the muscles of the creature it just ate, and that goes on the chain. That's why the tuna is getting hurt the worst. The salmon is also a large fish. I mean, it's not tiny. It's not minnow size. It is a creature that gets out there and eats a lot of other fish. So you're going to see it getting impacted the worst. The creatures that were eating stuff like seaweed, the first 90 days, they're the worst. But after 90 days, again, or after 10 weeks, not as bad as it was before. The problem is it's usually not just the radioiodine, it's the other contaminants that were along with it. The heaviest objects are contaminants, the curium, the americium, and whatever, got lifted extremely high into the atmosphere during the explosion and fires. And those made it as far as Vermont. And those are still there, but in very, very low quantities. So in a given cup of water that you take from the ocean, you might not experience any. In the next cup, you might encounter an entire cluster of particles that were carried along on a piece of dust or pollen. The actual worst case scenario for the distribution of some of these materials is that they get on pollen, which is really good at being carried by the air and lofted into the air system through pollen. So many of the plants that you see that are susceptible are plants that are collectors of pollen.
You know, I want to like actually try to do a live experiment at some point on the air. Like, I'm pretty sure I can get my hands on a piece of salmon or a crab or something in the next couple of weeks. I'm sure I can. That has come out of the Pacific Ocean, out of the Nehalem Bay. And maybe in the meantime, we can work on a way I can figure out how I can test that or something. And maybe we could do a live thing on the air or something. That would be kind of cool. I don't know.
If you can get an alpha detector for the gamma off the air, send me an address you want me to mail something to, and I'll send you something that'll show you where the alpha is.
All right, we'll work on that. I think that would be a really cool idea to try to make to come through.
So, I thought alpha was good and gamma was bad, right?
There is no good.
Oh, okay, it's all bad. Well, what is
alpha? That's another thing of radiation. There's so many myths and misunderstandings out there. Alpha is actually a piece of helium that doesn't have electrons. It's the atom splits and just kind of like only spits out just a helium nuclei. Now, helium is normally considered a noble gas. When it doesn't have its electrons, it is very, very it's more active than hydrogen even. So the next thing it hits, it's going to steal its electrons. So for a moment there, it's very reactive. It hits something, and then as soon as it hits, and it might actually embed itself into a piece of metal, piece of concrete, whatever. As soon as it goes in there, there's an incredible expansion because electron orbit is so many more times the volume of what a nucleus is.
Mm-hmm.
and you get real pressure in there, and pressure becomes heat, and it's a way that energy is expressed. When this happens a lot, you get damage, so it can be very damaging. We had a plant where we had a lot of americium, and there was a rumor going around that it worked like Viagra, and our mechanics started eating our americium. This is a very serious issue, and we had to immediately report it to the NRC when we had americium missing, and so we had a very fast reaction. The teams came in to investigate where this material is going, and once it is, they were put on like a 20-year monthly visit to the doctor to determine, first of all, the country is always desperate for more information on what radiation does to the body, but they were expecting serious consequences from the
Are they all dead now?
I don't know. They didn't keep us filled in.
Jeez. So hey, we're almost out of time, so we can wrap it up here real quick. What's going to happen in the coming months and years? I mean, Fukushima is like a never-ending disaster that's just going to eventually annihilate the human race, or what's going to happen?
One thing we have to switch to, in World War II, they sent Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts out to collect any piece, even gum wrappers, to collect metal. It was an extreme effort to solve the problems that we had of getting the materials we needed for war. This is a very serious instance, and we aren't putting any effort into it at all. And the cases that I see I constantly see in the news. There's nothing we can do. We can't go in there and find it. Well, Russia had almost as serious an incident in Chernobyl. Right. They did have to kill people to solve it. They solved it. In this case, I think we have to stop saying it's impossible to react to what's happening in Fukushima, and I think we have to change it from we can solve it, but it's going to cost a lot, and we have to be serious about it. Every issue that we have to look at, we can't look at, we can't see it now, so there's nothing we can ever do. Let's just put concrete over it. And personally, if you put concrete over Fukushima, everything that's happening is happening down below. Concrete won't do any help because the groundwater is going to go underneath the building right out to the ocean, which is very short distance away from it. So we can't just sit there and let it go like Chernobyl, which was actually placed in a pretty reasonable spot as far as the safety for the rest of the planet. But Fukushima was made to be cost efficient, and that took more of a precedence over safety of the planet.
Yeah.
There's another reactor that I think is even worse. That's Kundalakalam in India. We really should be bringing up issues before it melts down, because it's just a matter of time. It's anything you can see wrong with Fukushima, Kundalakalam does it worse. Sorry, I know it's going fast, but again, we have to stop saying we can't consider an option because it's too expensive, and stop treating it like, okay, we go bankrupt, we just close it up and walk away. I can't walk away from this one.
Can't kick the can down the road when you're already at the end of the block, huh?
There are many options they could be taking.
I love it.
But they're expensive. And
something to get into on the next time we talk, and I'm going to try to get me a piece of Pacific salmon so we can test it live on the air, man. Stork.
Wear protective equipment.
Mitch, love you, man. It's always good to hear from you, buddy. Appreciate the information and the education, as always. Give us a ring anytime. We would love to have you on anytime.
Okay.
Sounds good, bud. We'll talk to you soon.
Right.
Talk to you soon, and let that be the open invitation, the call to action at the end of the show for anyone who wants to get active and participate in the show. The phone number, the email, the Skype, the Twitter, and the Facebook are all scrolling above me. You can find out more at our website. Scott, real quick, man, 30 seconds. It's good to be back.
Yeah, right. Well, I think I'll just leave it with this. And it's a quote from Albert Camus, and it's that one of the only coherent philosophical positions is revolt. It is a constant confrontation between man and his obscurity.
Well, that's a good one. That's a good one. Oh, that's from the Chris Hedges that we're going to get into next time. That's why I remember that.
You got it. Exactly.
Good stuff. So, lots to look forward to on the next episode of Filter Free Radio, coming to you much, much sooner than this episode did. My sincerest apologies for our extended leave of absence. We're back. It's good to be back with you. I want to thank everyone who makes the show possible. Scott, my brother from another mother, everyone in the chat room, Snork, Vic, Will from Chicago, all you guys, love you guys. Big thanks to Nicole Sandler at RadioOrNot.com. Big thanks to Kenny Pick and all the folks at Liberal Justice Radio for getting us up and out there. And the folks at Progressive Blend Radio, all the people that do the music for the show, Dano at danosongs.com and Kevin McLeod at incompetech.com. Big thanks to you. Get out there, get active, participate, and refuse to retreat from reality. Check us out at filterfreeradio.com for more. We'll see you soon, very soon. Peace, love, rock and roll, good, all that good jazz.
Filter Free
There's
Radio.
a time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop.
So give me something to believe, 'cause I am living just to believe, and I need something more to keep on breathing for. So give me something to believe.
The revolution will be broadcast
Monday from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern. Filter Free Radio.